Do narcissists feel bad about all the lying, stealing, deception, and traumatic little webs they weave across people's lives? Along the same lines, do narcissists feel things like remorse? Do they miss people when they're gone, whether a relationship ends or maybe a loved one passes? Do they feel guilt or shame? Are these things that don't even register for a narcissist? In this video, I want to answer all of these questions. I think one of the most important things to start with is the fact that narcissistic personality disorder and all other personality disorders, even mental disorders, run on spectrums. I think this is something really important to understand, and I think sometimes even myself, I lose sight of that. I kind of just want to break it up into either you are narcissistic or you're not, and it just simply is not that way. There are scales of severity for these things, and I think it's really important to remember that not every narcissist nor psychopath, whatever, should really be treated as equals because we don't know, and no two people are the same regardless of what is going on with them. That being said, let's dig into getting some of these answers. So do narcissists feel bad about what they do? Some people subscribe to the idea that no, they do not in fact feel bad about anything they do. They're selfish and self-absorbed people, and all they care about is themselves. You being hurt or getting hurt doesn't matter to them in the slightest. In fact, some of them might even actually enjoy that. So that's a lot to take in right there, right off the bat. I think a lot of people want to label a narcissist as many other things, like a sociopath. A person will say things like, well, they don't care what they did to me, so they must not have any feelings. They don't care that I'm hurt, so they're just heartless. I bet you that's not entirely true. Sure, narcissists are never going to rush to your aid, whether it's an emergency or not. They're never going to make sure you're okay. Providing safety and stability and supportiveness is not in the nature of a narcissist. But we can't classify them as having no emotions or no feelings just because they don't care that ours are hurt, just because they seem rather meh about most things going on with other people. I bet you've probably seen this person angry, upset, maybe even very briefly happy. I'm sure you've seen them annoyed. Plenty of narcissists have feelings, and plenty of narcissists are actually highly emotional. They just don't give a shit about your feelings. They don't display feelings in response to what you're going through because they don't care. It doesn't mean they don't care about anything. But this is all just certainly one school of thought, and frankly, I don't think that it's correct. Narcissists have feelings. Narcissists have emotions. There are some, sure, we have to go back to the spectrum thing. There are some narcs, sure, that are completely void of all emotions, but there's something else happening there. So again, that's one school of thought. And this is where I really have to emphasize, the range here, the spectrum of this disorder and all disorders. There are just raging narcissists, and I feel that they don't feel bad for anybody. There's no guilt, no shame, no remorse. However, I feel it takes somebody highly narcissistic, and I feel it takes a highly narcissistic person being this way for a considerable amount of time to get to the place where they reach the point of no guilt and no shame, no humiliation, no remorse. I think they can get to that point, but I don't think that they start off that way. If you'd like to talk one-on-one about what you're going through or what you've gone through in a toxic relationship, you can email BookAChatWithJess@gmail.com to set up private chats with me. So for what it is worth, I have never lied and claimed to be any kind of medical professional here, but I think over time, narcissistic people have less and less guilt. They have some. I feel as if it gets subdued and lost over time. It wears down. But there is loss and shame, guilt, embarrassment, rejection. But why do I feel like it kind of lessens and lessens over time? So my theory, again, for what my theory is worth, if you disagree, feel free to tell me down in the comments. My theory here is that people with high levels of narcissism, that if they sat down with a professional, they would be diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. So they already have those lower levels of empathy, and they already have all of that to begin with. But what happens when someone kind of narky, what happens when they hurt another person? What happens when they get into a scenario where they should feel shame? What happens when they get into a situation where it's their fault that something bad has happened? What happens? Well, they make it somebody else's fault, don't they? They lie, they blame shift, they do those classically narcissistic things. They start gaslighting and deflecting and going into denial. That's what happens, right? Everything gets deflected. I'm sure by now you've seen videos about narcissists living in a fantasy world. They want everyone to see this false image of themselves. They live lies and live in fantasy worlds where they and only they control the narrative. And you know what the narrative is, survivor. The narrative is what the narcissist wants everyone to see. That world of I'm right, you're wrong, I'm good, you're bad, I'm angelic, you're evil, you're mean, you're crazy, you're cruel, etc. Something happens though. I think after so much time buying their own bullshit, the whole I'm good, you're bad, I think what happens is, I watched something on TV years ago and it was something called like the illusion of truth. And the quickest way I can sum it up is what I've said in plenty of other videos. They start buying their own bullshit that they're trying to sell to other people. And I think what happens is the deeper they get into their story, that they're right, that they're the victim and they've been wrong, I think these delusions amplify. I think the deeper they delve into their fantasy of everything is right and nothing they ever do can be perceived as bad, these very delusional ways of thinking, I think that's where all of the guilt and shame and rejection and embarrassment, I think that's where it all begins to wear down. They do something wrong and they feel guilty, but then they blame somebody else and they go, oh, yeah, why should I feel guilty? It's someone else's fault. And then that guilt goes from like 100 to 90. And then something else happens where they should feel guilty and they go, well, I had reason to do that. I mean, come on, I was totally backed in a corner. And guilt goes from 90 to 80. And it just goes down and down and down. And the deeper they get into these delusions, the more delusions of grandeur they have, all of these false narratives and these false images. I think what slowly begins to happen is they still feel those things, but it just so quickly gets sucked up into the fantasy. You don't even get through the sentence of I feel guilty. It's I feel guilty. Nope, somebody else's fault. And I don't even think they allow themselves to get there. Whatever idea you want to subscribe to, whether you feel they don't have any of these feelings, or maybe they start out with these feelings and they kind of fade away as they get more delusional, which is what I think. The bottom line I feel here is that this is a disorder. And I have sympathy for every person alive who has a disorder, no matter what the disorder is. And no matter what really bad, terrible things these disorders cause people to do, I guess I feel sympathy for it because I have bipolar disorder, and while it's not narcissism, I know the feeling, unfortunately, all too well of living in a fantasy world and thinking in a delusional way from time to time. And that's just something for me that's never going to go away. And so I guess I get it on a weird level. But that being said, some disorders also have more help available for them than others. And the sad part about narcissism is the whole point of narcissism. The disorder in a nutshell is I'm perfect, I'm great, it's all of you who suck. And I don't really feel they believe that, but it's kind of what's going on in their brain and kind of where their brain is. And the long and the short of it is narcissists are too scared and too set in their own ways and in their own way so much to really bring about a good change in this behavior. When you're literally dealing with something that already tells you you're perfect, don't change, I mean, really, do you have a shot at making anything any different? I just don't feel that you do. The good news here, and not only is there good news, there's great news. None of this that I just talked about, as fascinating and interesting as I, think it is, none of this has a damn thing to do with you, survivor. You can heal. You are strong enough. You will not sit and continue to make the same mistakes over and over again, as people like this will. You're resilient enough and powerful enough to change your life as soon as you decide to start leaving super mediocre shit alone. So this is the part where I want to hear from you. Tell me what your thoughts are on all of this. What ideas do you think are true? Are they just no empathy having, no sympathy having people right from the get-go? Or like me, do you think this kind of develops more and they get worse and worse over time as certain things begin to happen to them? Let me know all of that. If you would like to support my work here on my channel, I invite you to hit the subscribe button, leave a super thanks comment down below, join the Survivors Army if you want bonus content, extra videos, and other communications with me. Thank you so much for listening and for everything that you do for me. Have a great day, Survivor, and take care of yourself.